The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, how's it going?
I'm doing great in my personal life, Mike. I will tell you that it's a very tranquil time of the year. Things are nice. Suns discourse has been a little bit frustrating the past few weeks, past couple weeks, I guess, as we come on to the DeAndre Ayton saga part 8 million. But you know what? We're going to call an audible here. Not an audible because we planned this, and I think we're going to talk about something other than DeAndre Ayton for the first half of the episode as a palate cleanser, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, we still have to talk about DeAndre Ayton.
Still cover the rumors.
Because every week there's rumors at this point, so we have to cover them. But it is, we're just like 2.5 weeks away from at least having a much clearer picture of what the Suns are going to do. It's kind of interesting for you and I to try to talk about free agency while not knowing what the biggest positions of need are going to be for the Suns, because ultimately they have a backup offensive player position, maybe another star as we continue to talk about, but they might have a center. They might need a center, and it's hard to talk about exactly what the Suns are going to need before we know. Right.
And
hopefully we find a way to do it.
Most teams that are out of the playoff picture, there are 28 of them, obviously, at this point, are heavily into draft coverage. People know, A, that's not our specialty around these parts, but B, there's really nothing we can say about draft coverage. I guess we're going to debate. Maybe we can do something before the draft next week, or maybe we won't do anything at all because the Suns just don't have a pick. So it's a little hard to talk about that. It's just Ayton. And I understand why, kind of as a result of that environment, people are at each other's throats, but also we'll cover the rumors. Otherwise, it's getting silly out there. It's silly season.
Yeah. But we have another player that has some sort of contractual options this summer, and that's the player we wanted to talk about to start this episode, and that's Cameron Johnson, because we briefly, when we broke down the options for DeAndre Ayton immediately after the season ended, we briefly talked about what could be coming Cameron Johnson's way, but we never really settled on what we think he could be offered, and I'll be honest, I'm looking at different guys. I'm looking at the options, and I think it's going to be kind of hard to come up with a number that really makes sense for him to sign as an extension, because it's a really unique scenario for him in particular, in that his first contract out of his rookie contract is kind of like his contract. This is his one big contract. It's going to cover the length of his prime. He was drafted at 24 years old, for those who don't remember. That means that this contract could basically take him into his 30s, which is just a rare scenario for a player coming out of their rookie deal. And I think that is going to make his decisions particularly interesting. The other part of it, by the way, I don't know if you remember this, Sam. Do you remember who his agent is?
I should, but I actually don't. Who is it?
It's Devin Booker's dad, Melvin Booker.
I did forget about this. Yeah. Do we know how many clients Melvin Booker has?
I'm not sure. I know that one for sure, but do you want to look it up? Yeah. But I think that gives him almost clutch level type of leverage if they absolutely needed it. But the other part of that is, I think that if Devin Booker is just we need to keep Cameron Johnson as long as possible, I think the Suns are going to know. There's an easy way to let the Suns know. I mean, he can obviously just tell him or tell them. But I think, I mean, this is really the draft pick that James Jones is proud of. What is James Jones only made two? He's made 2 picks, right? And he traded the other pick that they had
for
Smith, Landry Shamet.
Oh,
and so that's it.
Yeah.
This is his one home run.
I mean, Jalen Smith
struck
is
out.
Funny enough, Jalen Smith is increasingly looking like, I think, a solid pick compared to what a lot of draft experts expected out of him. It's really super early in his career as well, but it's just, you traded him for to get Torrey Craig back, so that didn't that didn't exactly work. Even if you could, we've talked about Halliburton and Vassell and all the other guys you could have had in that spot to death, but this is the one. The Cam Johnson pick is kind of what James Jones hangs his legacy on as a drafter. So yeah, it's kind of important, I think, that you not necessarily that you show loyalty to him for that reason. You show loyalty to him based on his play. But I think there's a lot of interesting questions here with Cam, like you covered. So first of all, the fact that this contract will run from ages, assuming we're talking about a 4-year deal, which I don't see any reason why not. We'd be talking about a contract that runs from his age 27 to 30 season. So really, really peak productivity, roughly peak athleticism for most players. That's what we're dealing with. And then, just in terms of his play this season, I feel like there weren't a lot of extremes for Cam. The Knicks game obviously is like the one extreme good. But for the most part, he had hot streaks. He had cold streaks. But the extremes weren't ridiculous on either side. And I feel like we were able to gather a pretty good assumption of who Cam Johnson will be going forward. And I think the greatest remaining question is talking about ceiling. What else can he continue to add to his game at this point when he's already approaching age 26, 27 right now? Those ceiling conversations are always kind of difficult, but those ceiling conversations are also less of a factor when you're talking about a guy who's this old coming off his rookie contract, as opposed to a lot of guys who are typically ages 22, 23, 24, and you're assuming some growth kind of factored into that contract offer. So I think it's going to be really interesting for a lot of reasons.
So this year he averaged 12.5 points per game, and in just like 2 minutes more per game than the previous season where he averaged 9.6 points. So his overall production went up like pretty well on a minute by minute basis. He also essentially led the league in 3-point percentage up until he was injured, and he still ended the season with a 42.5% 3-point shot, which is essentially what we've been wanting from Cameron Johnson. Like, this is exactly the type of season that you would want from him. He was a role player. He still came off the bench, which I think is an interesting part of this conversation. For like, if they end up paying him a lot, is he going to still come off the bench? I kind of don't know. But the first thing I did was try to look up what I thought were comparable players, which made me quickly realize there's not many as far as the type of guys that Cameron Johnson is. And then I looked up their contracts because Cameron Johnson, 6'8", 6'9", essentially, and a 3-point shooter who's not bad at defense. Like, he's pretty solid. I wouldn't say he's like a plus defender or like a great defender, but he's never terrible.
I think he might be a plus. Personally,
maybe you're right.
Splitting hairs.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see him start. Like, if he starts for a full season, will his defense start to affect them a little more?
Fair.
He was targeted over and over and over again by Luka Doncic. And for those who like to focus their entire offseason analysis on Game 7, he was the only player that looked like he was trying in Game 7. I know there's a lot of people that tend to bring up Game 7 only when talking about what the Suns need, which supposedly they had COVID, by the way. We'll talk about that later if we have time. I came up with a few names. Davis Bertans signed a 5-year, $80 million contract, which is absurd now to think about. But he started to play well and was part of the reason the Mavericks beat the Suns in the postseason. That averaged out at $16 million annually.
3 months ago, I would have made a snarky joke about that, but I can't now because
we no longer have the high ground.
We no longer have the ability to do that. So hats off, Davis Bertans. I guess you earned it.
And here's another one, Doug McDermott, which I think Cameron Johnson is obviously better than. But I think it sets the market a little bit. 3 years, $41.25 million, which is only $13.75 million annually. And honestly, when I first heard about this contract being signed by Doug McDermott, he was injured, and I thought it was kind of a bad contract, but he was really good this year. He was actually right up there with Cameron Johnson as far as 3-point percentage, and has gotten a lot better at attacking off the dribble on closeouts. So that's a pretty good contract for Doug McDermott, to be honest. There's another one, an obvious one, Mikal Bridges, 4 years, $90 million. This is the largest contract I'm going to talk about here, which is $22.75 million annually. and Mikal Bridges just finished top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting, he would be signed for a lot more had he waited. We're glad he didn't, of course. And I think this is a pretty fair contract for him. The offense is an interesting difference between him and Cameron Johnson. He plays a lot more minutes. Mikal Bridges is a great three-point shooter, not as willing to shoot as Cameron Johnson. I think, well, I don't know. Would you just say that Cameron Johnson is a better offensive player than Mikal Bridges? Or I don't know how to really rate that.
I would just say Cam Johnson suffers from fewer confidence issues offensively than Mikal Bridges.
That's a good way.
It's not necessarily that he's more talented. I just think he makes shit happen more often on a permanent basis. And when we talk about comparing these two guys in contracts, I'll just say right now, like, I think that Mikal figure is too high for Cam. But if I'm Cam's agent, if I'm Melvin Booker, I suppose, I can see myself construing an argument where it's like, yes, you're giving up some of the defensive ability of, obviously Cam Johnson is not, he doesn't have the same defensive ability as Mikal Bridges, but he's just a more willing scorer. He's a more willing shooter. There are some other stats I can bring up maybe in a little bit about free throw rate and stuff like that. And you can construct an argument to maybe say Cam Johnson has a higher offensive ceiling than Mikal Bridges. It becomes a little bit more difficult just based on the fact that Jay Crowder has been holding strongly that starting 4 spot all season long, but you could make an argument.
Yeah. Maybe the best comparison is Duncan Robinson, who has kind of not been as good since he signed the contract. So those who are thinking that that's not a good example, just keep in mind that Duncan Robinson was really great defensively in the bubble and actually was a big reason that they made it to the NBA Finals. He was a player that wasn't really played off the court in the playoffs. His contract was longer. It was a 5-year contract, so a long one. I think he was because of his status, I think he ended up being a fully unrestricted free agent when he was able to sign. But his contract is going from age 27 to age 31, so a very similar period of his career. And it was a 5-year, $90 million contract, but the last year of his deal, which I thought was interesting and I only discovered today when doing my research, is like half guaranteed. It's partially guaranteed.
I did not know that.
Out of $19 million, out of $19 million, excuse me, only $9.8 million is guaranteed.
So it's basically guaranteed that he's not getting the other half of that last year. We know that now.
It's an $80 million contract.
Yeah,
essentially.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He's been rough for a little bit.
Unless, getting closer to the end of that contract, I'm sure they can probably dump him somewhere and they'll decide what they want to do with that last bit of his contract. But are there any other players that you could think of that are comparable to Cameron Johnson?
Well, I didn't really think about it, I guess, in terms of exact skill sets and stuff, but I just looked at some other recent rookie contract extensions that were non-rookie max extensions because, I wanted to get a feel. And so, I think there are some other guys in the general range that we could make some comparisons to. Again, not exactly the same skill set, but just kind of a similar maybe role on the team. Kevin Huerter is one guy who was re-signed by Atlanta last offseason for 4 years with, I've just got the averages here, I don't have the total, but an average of $16.2 million per year for Kevin Huerter, for a guy who has been a little bit on and off when it comes to the Hawks starting lineup over the past several years. He started, without having his page in front of me, I want to say like 80 to 85% of the games for the Hawks over the past like 2 or 3 seasons. But he has sometimes played in that bench role. Obviously a shooter, obviously a combo guard kind of scorer type, but not overwhelming in terms of his offensive ability. OG Anunoby, 4 years, $18 million per year. That's a guy we brought up a lot in comparison to Mikal's deal, I think. And his was a couple seasons ago now. So, but I think it is still somewhat relevant in terms of there are no reservations about whether OG can start or not. He's a two-way impact player. He's definitely improved on offense since he signed that contract, and so maybe he's answered some questions about that. But he's a two-way impact guy who's going to start on like basically any team in the NBA, and he's making $18 million per year. Luke Kennard is one last guy I would bring up. He's like maybe similar to Cam Johnson just in that he signed a 4-year, $14 million deal basically as a sixth man, who could start like maybe 30 or 40% of your games if someone was out with an injury, but basically he was a bench player and he was out there to go and kind of score. I don't think his defensive impact is to the level of Cam's. I don't think he's quite as bad as Duncan Robinson level either, though, to be honest. So, and that's what he's making, $14 million a year. So
right.
I thought all of those were kind of interesting. Those are all recent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if Cameron Johnson really closed the season as strong as he was playing before his injury, it could have had an impact, but they do have that stretch of games where he was starting and he was just really great, averaging over 20 points a game and was like a go-to scorer when Devin Booker was injured. Yeah. And it was the best stretch of his career. I mean, really.
No doubt.
He had that Knicks game. It was 4 or 5 games, so it wasn't a lot, but it's something to look at. So, to explain the situation to people who don't understand it, he has a year left on his contract before he's a restricted free agent. So the Suns could sign him to an extension now that doesn't kick in until after this coming season. That means that he has the option of saying, I'm not interested in an extension now. If he thinks the Suns are going to start him this year, maybe he wants to be a starter and have the opportunity to make more. But I do want to look at the 2024 free agents. But did you have something to say there, Sam?
Well, I just want to point out, you talked about that stretch of the season. You said it was only 4 or 5 games. It was only 4 or 5 games where he averaged over 20. But his best stretch of the season, kind of as a general concept, was from the start of the new year all the way up until that Knicks game. And then after that, he bruised his quad and he came back and he struggled. And he wasn't even quite the same when he came back in the playoffs, to be honest. But if you just isolate that one stretch up until the Knicks game, he averaged over 25 games where he started 10 of them. He averaged 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists per game, 51% from the field, 47 from deep, 93 from the free throw line. It's always a bit of a dangerous game when you take a player's absolute best stretch of their career and say, hey, can he sustain this for an entire season next year? And is that who we can project him as being? But if you're maybe less concerned about, say, a quad injury, which, to be honest, I think, that was a temporary thing, and I don't really anticipate hindering Cam greatly next season.
Right.
We really saw a different Cam Johnson during that stretch, and it was incredibly encouraging to see him build that stretch over the course of not just 4 or 5 games, but really it was more like 20 or 25 games. And if that's who he could be over the course of a full season, especially in the games where he started, he averaged 16.3 points, 4.9 rebounds on 66% true shooting. That's tremendous. And, I don't know if he would shoot 50% from deep as a starter over a full season. Maybe a lot of that is hot shooting luck.
He gets more open as a starter, I bet.
Yeah, I don't know.
The defense isn't as zeroed in on him.
I guess I would just, let's say you can take that stretch, and there's reason maybe for Cam in his own head, in his own logic, to want to gamble on himself. If we are bringing up that possibility, because during that stretch he really was amazing, in my opinion.
There were points of the postseason where I was asking for Cameron Johnson to start in the postseason. So, and I think that shows the value that he would bring as just someone who can't be left in the starting lineup. So, if Cameron Johnson were to wait and not sign an extension, which I think is kind of unlikely, it just depends on what the Suns are willing to offer him, but if he's willing to wait, the market for next year, the 2024 free agent class, have you looked at it, Sam? It's kind of interesting.
I have not looked at it one bit yet.
I'm going to read you some names then. Klay Thompson, 34 years old. Tobias Harris, 32 years old. Chris Middleton, 33-ish years old. Pascal Siakam, 30 years old. CJ McCollum, 32. Karl Anthony Towns, 28. Devin Booker, 27. Kristaps Porzingis, Gordon Hayward, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Jaylen Brown. There's another interesting one, fully unrestricted. These are all fully unrestricted players, by the way. Draymond Green, Buddy Hield, and then it starts to get a little less interesting. I'll read those names only to illustrate the best free agents this year are Zach LaVine and DeAndre Ayton.
And Ayton's not even unrestricted.
Yeah.
That's
so
pretty
the market
great.
next year is like, they're older players, a lot of these players. But there's quite a few all-stars in the mix. Klay Thompson, Chris Middleton, Pascal Siakam, Karl Anthony Towns. Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns both have the option of signing extensions right now. Those are all all-stars right now. And Jaylen Brown, I believe, did Jaylen Brown made an all-star team? I think he has, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Jaylen Brown's in there. Draymond Green, that'll be an interesting one, by the way. What Draymond Green's final contract that he signs will look like.
Taxpayer mid-level, something like that. By 2024. He's cooked. He's cooked. We're recording
Sabonis.
during Game 5 right now, by the way, so we don't know what's going on. Sabonis is in that group too?
He is in that group.
Wow.
Yeah, that's another one, 28 years old. Yeah, so there's just a lot of good players. If Cameron Johnson were to wait, a lot of these players are probably going to sign some sort of extension. The free agent market, the reason it gets to the point that it gets, like this year, is that agents have used their leverage to force teams to sign or offer extensions more often than previous. Like Devin Booker, probably not. Devin Booker shouldn't be on this list by the end of this current offseason, for example. So that's an example of how it could look. But right now, if you're an agent and you're looking at this, you're probably like, you know what? I don't want to compete with that. What if the cap space dries up? Cameron Johnson has to settle for less. It's possible you could consider them having more leverage right now than they would later. And I don't know.
Right.
That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
It's a bit of an extreme example, but no one wants to Nerlens Noel their client anymore. Where do you remember that Nerlens Noel example from like many years ago?
Yeah.
Now where
it's clutch. Yeah.
Yeah. He got offered. Was it clutch at the time? Yeah. Because he
fired him for it.
He ditched them after this, and as he should have. He got offered. Well, I mean, it was his fault too, to be fair.
Yeah.
But he got offered what, like maybe $14 or $15 million from the Mavericks, and he turned it down. And then the cap space all dried up too fast in the free agent pool the next year. And I believe he took the qualifying offer and just never got a big offer sheet. Never got a big offer like that again.
Yeah, it's like a $90 million contract, right? Something like that.
Yeah. So again, if you're Cam Johnson, you're age 27. You know that like this is your shot. You get a big offer sheet from the Suns this summer, probably towards the end of the summer when they would try to take care of this realistically after other stuff. But it would have
that quad injury in your mind.
Yeah, maybe
before you sign it.
Maybe I'm not sure, but it would be a lot of guaranteed money, no matter what. We can split hairs on the exact, what does he deserve? What does he not deserve? It's going to be a lot of guaranteed money. It would be a lot of guaranteed money to turn down this year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Mikal Bridges last year was operating under the same logic. DeAndre Ayton was the guy who decided that actually, no, fuck you. I'm going to gamble. I'm going to gamble on myself, and we'll see how that plays out for him.
Yeah, that'll be a fascinating thing if we hear the full version of that story. I bet the two sides are going to tell different stories. We'll talk about that later. I do have some sort of insight on that, but when I look at this first, we can come up with a number, and I think it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll both agree on something, I have a feeling. But the Suns could trade him. That's another option that the Suns could do right now, and then that next team has the option of negotiating an extension with him. This happens pretty commonly. Landry Shamet, for example, traded to the Suns. The Suns signed him to an extension before the season even started. Like, there are players that you have enough information about. You can debate whether you think the Landry Shamet extension was worthwhile, and maybe the Suns didn't have enough information about him. But I think teams, if they traded for Cameron Johnson, would probably feel pretty confident
it will be him. Worthwhile in the Kevin Durant trade. Go on.
So, yes, I mean, obviously, like Kevin Durant, like you do Ayton and Cameron, if they want Cameron Johnson, right, if you find a way to keep Mikal Bridges, you would do that. And, like, I keep in mind there is the complication of his agent being Devin Booker's dad when you trade him as well. You want Devin Booker to be happy, and I don't know, maybe Devin Booker understands the business as well. And
I don't know, man.
If you're getting Kevin Durant, I don't think Booker's going to be mad about that. But
if that's going to be a consideration, I think Melvin's in the wrong business. I have a hard time believing
just get
that
the most money.
Yeah, I think he's making moves, as he has the right to ensure the greatest wealth for his family, and this was an approach he wanted to take with his career. Obviously, I don't think all this stuff about like, is my son happy or not, I don't think he's really thinking about that just in terms of business. He's just trying to get his clients paid.
James Jones probably is, though, right?
Sure.
You don't play hardball.
That's different. Yeah.
You don't play hardball with Devin Booker's father. So yes, so you would do that. Obviously, I think you would do our fake imaginary Donovan Mitchell trade. I assume you would put Cameron Johnson and Ayton in that if somehow you could get Donovan Mitchell as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so far we're talking about clear superstar players. Yes, I would trade Cam Johnson for a superstar.
So where does the line end? Well, for example, like OG Anunoby supposedly unhappy in Toronto, and maybe Ayton is not going there. Maybe Ayton goes somewhere else. But maybe the Suns could build something around like Jay Crowder, Cameron Johnson, and picks for OG Anunoby, who is on a pretty good contract right now. Would you do that?
too little return. It's that to me seems like such a diminishing return. You could make the argument that OG is the better player right now, but frankly, I don't think he's a better player by much. Do you? I think we need to have a conversation about, is Cam Johnson expected on this next contract to be a 40% volume 3-point shooter who plays acceptable defense, and that's it? Or
30 plus minutes a game, maybe at this point? Are we
and
thinking
30
that?
and yeah, sure, and you can extrapolate the playing time a little bit, and I'm sure he would be able to handle 30 plus minutes per game. That's not even a concern of mine. But I guess I want to call back to, remember what Monty said in the aftermath of the disaster that was Game 7, where he said, I feel like I didn't put these guys in a position to succeed in the playoffs, where you just need guys to put their heads down and get a bucket. I'm paraphrasing everything that he said, obviously. But he specifically called out by name, and it was interesting because he didn't talk about Ayton here when he was talking about this. I think because, I don't know, I'm speculating. I don't think because he hates Ayton, but I think because he was just focusing in his mind on perimeter players, guys who catch the ball on the perimeter and can maybe work an ISO or a pick and roll.
You mean guys who might actually drive? Right?
Yeah, shut up.
I think Ayton had what 26 drives this season.
So he talked about Mikal Bridges. He talked about Cam Johnson. He even talked about Landry Shamet when he gave this answer to a reporter. Which again, Landry Shamet, whatever. But with Cam, you know, it's I guess it just brings up an interesting debate that I do think we've had before. But did Monty fail Cam Johnson in not giving him like we've had this conversation with Ayton before, and it's exhausting to continue having this conversation with Ayton. We do it a little bit less with Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. Should Monty have let Cam Johnson run pick and rolls?
Cam Johnson.
Shut up. Run pick and rolls. Take me seriously.
No, I
should
think
he have should he have let Cam Johnson fail during the regular season, even if it led to fewer wins?
Oh, okay. During the regular season.
Yeah, believing that it would have paid dividends in the playoffs and in future contracts like this, where you have a more well-rounded player. Do we actually believe in that potential for Cam Johnson? Because, you know, I think we have some stats we can point to here, and I think there are some good ones and some really bad ones. But first, I'm curious kind of just what you think about his ceiling right now.
I think the Suns have done a really good job developing Cameron Johnson for what he's become. I mean, his movement off the ball, his willingness to shoot against contests, and his ability to attack on closeouts have all gotten better since his rookie year, where he came in at 24 years old. And I would say significantly better in this last year. So I don't think in any way the Suns have held him back. I think even at his absolute peak, he's a role player, just a really good one.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got to maximize that within his role, and I think they have done exactly that. I think they should be incredibly proud of what they've done with him so far. Where I thought you were going, and where I think you could make a good case for, is he should have probably just started him at some point in the playoffs and not allowed teams to leave Jay Crowder over and over and over again. That could be the future. Like, there's a good chance that Jay Crowder's on another team next year and Cameron Johnson is starting, and that may have been the only way to get Monty Williams to do that based on what we saw in the playoffs.
And I think that definitely still leaves some defensive and physicality concerns, not going to lie, just based on what we know about Cam Johnson. He's not like Jay Crowder is not a tremendous rebounder either, but Cam is even worse. The stats do show that. The physicality defensively, it would be worse, maybe not significantly so, but yeah, I do think we're talking about a drop-off there. And if you're talking about playing Cam 30-plus minutes, and you know, it gets to a discussion of, does that wear him down offensively, the fact that he will be having to exert more effort defensively, and also he needs to get in the weight room this year if he maybe wants to play that role for an entire season, because it's going to be critical.
That's why I think I would trade him for OG Anunoby, for the record.
Yeah,
just because I think you upgrade the physicality on defense in a way that the Suns have been lacking a big giant guy who could guard big giant guys. You know, they have nobody to guard Luka, basically.
OG's cool, but I don't see that high level initiator in him either, and so I don't think you're getting enough there. Let me throw two stats your way, one really good and one really bad, and I just want to gauge your take on them as it relates to Cam Johnson. Really good. The second highest free throw rate on the entire Suns roster in the playoffs. Free throw rate is not like total free throws or even free throws per game of exactly how many free throws you shoot, but it's a proportion of the number of free throw attempts you take per field goal attempt. So on a per field goal attempt, who's getting the most free throws? Cam Johnson finished second on the team in the playoffs, only behind Bismack Biyombo. I thought that was really interesting for a guy who's supposed to be a shooter. It's
not surprising for how he's developed. Yeah,
he had already improved his free throw shooting to a career high 86% this season, and he had already improved his free throw attempts, like per 100 possession attempts, to a career high, not like substantially, but in previous seasons it would have been like 2, and this season it was 3. So it was improvement for a guy who was able to attack closeouts. And I think his moves are relatively simple, but he was able to put his head down and drive forcefully to the rim, and sometimes even winds up with that poster dunk. I thought that was really impressive. But does that surprise you at all, just hearing that he was second on the roster in the playoffs?
No, I mean, I don't think I would have guessed it, but hearing it out loud, it doesn't feel surprising. Okay. It does feel like something like that's something he's really developed well. He's kind of reckless, actually. That's the one thing I would kind of worry about with him starting, because like the injury against Mitchell Robinson, to be fair, he was just attacking the closeout. Mitchell Robinson came in sideways, but that was attacking the rim, and he took a knee right to the thigh. So I would hope he finds ways to continue to remain healthy, but that recklessness is how he's able to draw free throws.
Yeah, and God knows we need the free throws right now, so I really, really appreciated that. Here's the bad stat. Pull up 2-point shooting for Cameron Johnson the regular season this year. 9 for 48. Do you want to know what that is as a percentage? I need to look it up. That is that is 19%, my friend. Do you have a reaction to that?
I'll be honest, it kind of felt like that as well, in that in the previous season, the finals season, I felt like something was starting to get going there. Like he was starting to figure out that little pull-up shot, especially like in the last few months of the season / playoffs. And so I was hoping to see it this year. I think it was something we talked about on our internal development episode. I think that was with Gerald in the off season, and we just didn't see it. I mean, we saw him 48 shots. That's what, like almost like one a game.
Almost one a game
for the amount of games he played. Yeah. Yep. So
he was trying
just never quite worked.
He was trying it, but that implies like a really, really, really poor conversion rate as a pick and roll ball handler, which I guess you could say is not the role that you're trying to shuffle Cameron Johnson into in the future necessarily. But when you talk about ceiling, it is important to say, okay, so he's improved his free throw rate. Maybe that means he can generate really good returns as a weak side closeout punisher of sorts. But he's not a pick and roll ball handler type, and he just won't be. And so how do you maximize the returns and the ceiling of Cameron Johnson going forward as a guy who doesn't have the greatest speed or the greatest leaping ability? He does have a leaping
athleticism,
ability. Yeah. I have thought about it.
He's not the greatest defender, but he's like one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA.
Right, and I have thought about it before. I'm like, well, okay, so he's just like, you look at those stats and you're like, he's just not going to be a pick and roll initiator, right? He's not. So outside of, we know he can do easy catch and shoots. We know he can do off-screen shooting as well. Where else are you going to eke that offensive production out of? Like what other skills could he develop, I suppose? Is it reasonable to believe that he still develops a solid mid-range jumper in addition to plus playmaking, given that he's 6'8", 6'9"? I think that's kind of wishful thinking at this point. One thing,
the mid-range shot, I still feel like there's a small chance that at least gets up to like 39-40%.
Yeah, I mean, the form is good, and I could buy into it being a 39-40% shot that's like passable for the regular season. It's not going to be a move that you feel comfort in.
You're not going to go to it in the clutch. Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about is if Cam really focuses on adding strength this year, right? Like if he's like, okay, I'm going to be the starting power forward, and I'm going to put on muscle, and we're going to focus on the defense and physicality and rebounding aspect of the game. How that relates to his offense, like, okay, maybe he's not a pick and roll ball handler, and maybe he doesn't blow by anyone with his speed. Could he be one of these like, and don't laugh at me when I bring up this comparison, but like, could he be one of these step back 3 types? Like, could he be a really, really, really watered down version of Luka Doncic, who kind of
has pick and rolls entirely to create the 3.
Pick and rolls entirely to create the 3. Like, if he can get enough gravity behind that shot, and that is certainly, like, we're talking about probably the most difficult self-created shot in basketball, so by no means am I saying it's an easy feat. I'm just like, where is it reasonable to expect that maybe he could develop something new? Well, if he could do that... Like, if he could... And the reason I bring it up also is because I've seen Cameron Johnson hit step-back 3s before. It's just right now it's something that he tries maybe once every 5 games.
Yeah.
What if next year he took one of those per game? And if you get if you developed enough gravity on it and you baited defenses into it enough and he was stronger, then okay, maybe you kind of one of these large, like, robust wing types, you sort of just slither your way to the bucket after you bait someone into the shot by doing that. And it kind of creates like, okay, you don't have the mid-range game, you don't have the in-between, but you can either get to the rim with a guy on your hip, or you can take the three. I don't know. I mean, is it reasonable to expect that he becomes that? Maybe not. But if he does, then we're certainly cooking with gas at that point. So,
well, I can say that you just did a good job of illustrating why an extension is important. Because if he were to try one step back three a game, there's a chance that it slightly tanks his 3-point percentage, and slightly tanking his 3-point percentage right before his free agency is something that he probably would not want to do. But if he's signed long term and he's confident in his place with the team, and the team is encouraging him to take those shots, then he doesn't have to worry about it affecting his bottom line. And that's the advantage of getting these guys on extensions right now. Okay, so I have a number. This is a longer conversation than I thought we were going to have on this, which is good. I think it's interesting. I have a number, a yearly number, and I guess a 4-year number that we can talk about. Do you have a number as well that you think that would be a good contract that is realistic for Cameron Johnson?
Yeah, I've thought about yearly numbers. I tend to save the should we front load it, back load it, whatever for the real cap gurus who are like really crunching the numbers to understand exactly what we have to work with
and the Suns are good at that,
tax and stuff. Yeah, but I haven't thought about that. I've just thought about like this per year feels good.
Okay, my number is 18 million per year. What's yours?
Mine was 17. So we're in about the same place.
I think there's zero chance the Suns get him for less than 15. When I looked at these other, or even 15, when I looked at these other contracts, I'm like, Cameron Johnson's better than all these guys. And I think the most realistic one is probably the closest to what Duncan Robinson signed, being that it's an incredibly similar deal. Duncan Robinson was fully unrestricted. They were able to sign him to a non-max 5-year deal, and that allowed them to put that little extra wiggle room in there for the last year. I don't think the Suns need to do that for Cameron Johnson. Maybe there was a little more worry about Duncan Robinson holding up. I don't think there's really that for Cameron Johnson. So yeah, I would say 4 years, $72 million. I mean, you're right there, $68 million. Do you think that's something that he would sign?
I don't know. We don't know what the roster is going to look like. I would like to think yes. I would like to think that is a fair load of guaranteed money to turn down at a time in your career when you're not exactly sure if you're going to be a starter or a bench player going forward. And, of course, you never know with 100% accuracy your health going forward. So, yeah, I'd like to think that that's a fair offer and that Cam would take it, and I think everyone would be super happy with that. But I guess time will tell.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the people listening to this think. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let us know. He loves Phoenix. Phoenix loves him from all accounts. Cameron Johnson is an incredibly competitive dude who just wants to win. And the Suns have given him the opportunity to compete basically every year of his career. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends. We'll take a quick break and we'll break down some more of the rumors about DeAndre Ayton and other things coming up next. Okay, Sam, we're just gonna have to do this every week.
Yeah, it's fine. I've made my peace with it.
The Ayton rumor roundup. It's only a few more weeks of this, a few more episodes of this, and then that's it.
Can we get? Can we get one thing out of the way first?
Sure.
I know people have varying opinions about, maybe they don't like it when we get too meta about the discourse that's going on out in the community, but we're gonna talk about the Ayton rumors here this week because that's what's out there, like you said. Like, we're going to continue to cover it. It's just I guess I don't understand right now why this conversation. Maybe I understand why, but I'm frustrated by the fact that this conversation is increasingly becoming Chris Paul on one side, like who backs Chris Paul on one side and who backs DeAndre Ayton on the other side, and I don't understand exactly how we got here in a season that ended in colossal failure that can kind of be blamed on everybody. I guess maybe the Ayton people are frustrated by the fact that it feels like all of us continue to talk about DeAndre Ayton all the time. But it's like, I don't know, man. Where are you with this? Because it's like, I wish we didn't have to do this every week. I wish we didn't have to talk about DeAndre Ayton all the time. My thing with DeAndre Ayton at this point is less so like I want him off the team because I think he's a lost cause or whatever, but more so just because it's like he's a free agent. Chris Paul is not a free agent. Chris Paul doesn't have a lot of trade value anyway. Yeah, it's like, but I wish the fracturing of the community would calm down a little bit because the two extremes are getting pretty insane.
Chris Paul took the third most field goal attempts on the Suns this season. DeAndre Ayton was second. Most of those field goal attempts by DeAndre Ayton were assisted by Chris Paul. If anyone thinks that James Jones is thinking about this as Chris Paul or DeAndre Ayton, I'll tell you this right now. Not to stir things up even more, it's a lot more Cameron Johnson or DeAndre Ayton at this point, because Chris Paul, you could essentially get rid of the majority of his salary after this season. Then Cameron Johnson's extension would kick in if the Suns signed Cameron Johnson to an extension. The reality of the tax bill the Suns are going to see in future seasons is that the high-paying guys that are going to have the largest impact on that outside of Devin Booker are right now going to be DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Johnson, and this is the summer where they can make a decision on both of those players. So I'm not really sure why people are pitting them against each other. Like I said, Chris Paul DeAndre Ayton took more shots than him this year. I think more often than not, during the regular season, I personally was bitching about Chris Paul turning down shots that I wanted him to take, and I thought he should have shot more shots in the regular season. The playoffs as well, but there were differing situations there. So yeah, I found it to be odd, and I think that I don't think it's logical. I don't think it's logical in any way. I don't think that I think those guys are close, and I think Chris Paul has only been good for DeAndre Ayton's career. Odd. It's very odd.
Yeah. I guess we're going to keep talking about it, man. The Suns have a second best player problem. Assuming that you believe that Devin Booker is their best player. And whether you're on the Chris side...
Which you should by now if you don't, by the
way. We debated it at times throughout, as recently as this season.
Yeah, but now Chris Paul's... I think it's pretty clear now.
I agree. Whether you're on the Chris Paul side, though, or on the DeAndre Ayton side, if you think that either one of those guys could be the second best player as in their current form on a championship team, probably both sides are wrong. So I don't know, man. It's like we gotta I guess I'm trying my best not to pit. We are only talking about DeAndre Ayton because he's the only one who happens to be a free agent. But rest assured, the failure of the 2022 Phoenix Suns, it was a failure of everyone. It was a colossal... I'm disappointed. I continue to be disappointed in all of these guys. And so I guess I just want people to understand, I'm not trying to scapegoat any one player.
Yeah.
The Suns have their work cut out for them if they want to win a goddamn championship in the future. That's what we're trying to figure out.
It's funny because there are the options to run it back that people are talking about. And then there are these sort of half-assed sign and trade options that people have come up with. And I think the debate for a lot of people has been, is just running it back, does that make them closer to a championship than these sign and trades that are not technically equal value for DeAndre Ayton? And I be honest, and people probably hate when I talk like this, I think they're both just as close to winning a title for a lot of them, in that they're not going to in most cases. Whether it be Jakob Poeltl and Keldon Johnson, or just re-signing DeAndre Ayton, they still have problems that they're going to have to solve in order to win a championship with either one of those scenarios. And I think it's up to the Suns, and it's up to their decision makers to find the best way forward in between those lines. And that's incredibly difficult. And honestly, not to bitch about this either, but it makes it harder for us to talk about it because we're not sure which path they're going to go down. I do think some clarity is coming, though, because Mark Stein reported that people around the league think that Ayton is the most important player to change teams this year. And this has come after reports from a lot of people who are essentially thinking this. And even Kellen Olson, I listened to his Empire of the Sun podcast from a few days ago, also said, based on what he feels about this team, that I think he put it at 80-85% that DeAndre Ayton is gone on that podcast, and the small percentages that they're just not getting any offer worthwhile. But he even mentioned the concept of them just being okay, not getting anything close to equal value and just moving on from there. So in some respect, I think the whispers about DeAndre Ayton not staying with the Suns are becoming screams at this point. That people are trying to tell us that DeAndre Ayton is likely gone next year. You could say that this isn't necessarily new news. I think some people have made that case, but it is a number 1 overall pick that is likely going to be let go in his first contract, who was a good player. Like, it's not like a complete bust situation.
No, not even close.
So what do you think about this report?
Oh man, it kind of fucking sucks, right? It's like not that I would necessarily mourn the loss of DeAndre Ayton depending on the return. We've talked about trading the guy a million times on this podcast, if I'm being honest, but it's just I don't like the idea of this eroding leverage right now that's going on as people continue to scream, as you said, more and more about the idea of it being a fractured relationship and him really wanting out of here. And yes, the Suns still have some leverage, but I just like in a lot of these trade packages are just bullshit, man. And I really want the option to just re-sign the guy, match a 4-year max offer, and reevaluate a year from now. I would like to believe that could still work. These reports are starting to give me the idea that maybe even that is not feasible, and maybe even maybe it's James Jones's fault that they're not even interested in pursuing that path. I think that would be short-sighted. Yeah,
right. They can do it.
But let's be honest.
Willingness to do it.
So, like, okay, theoretically, sorry, I'm going to segue into your next rumor here, but like, let's say they take what I would refer to as one of these bullshit offers, right? There are a bunch of
Okay.
offers, but you know, if you get DeAndre Ayton for Clint Capella and a late first-round pick,
Yeah.
you think James Jones is that short-sighted that he accepts that over just saying no? We'll just match an offer and reevaluate 6 months or a year from now, because that to me would just be so disappointing, and we would have to have a conversation about the front office at that point, I think, if that were to happen this summer.
I think that there's a good chance things are not going well between DeAndre and the coaches or the players, and I could see them accepting something like that if they absolutely had to. Based on everything that's coming out about this team and the extent to which, and the thing about free agency is interesting because you can make the case the Suns haven't said anything, and I think you're probably right. But the players in the locker room, they can talk and they can tell people what's going on. The coaches can. I don't think the Suns coaches would, but they can. Maybe assistant coaches going to other teams, and then you have the agents that are going around, like DeAndre Ayton's agent can go around and seed things. DeAndre Ayton himself could go around and seed things. The idea that the Suns haven't said anything about this doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to free agency. These rumors can get out pretty easily, and they can come from different places. Maybe smoke screens, maybe not.
Right.
But yeah, Jake Fisher is pushing Atlanta hard. He keeps saying that keeps coming up over and over and over again for DeAndre Ayton. And then today, from Kevin O'Connor, there was a report that John Collins could be traded, and he even said for a lottery pick, which could potentially clear cap space, by the way, for a run at DeAndre Ayton, if that's something they end up doing. I think they'd still have to do more, so the Suns could still get something out of them. But I thought that was interesting. Have you thought about, you probably did today, I'm guessing, John Collins for DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, first of all, Collins is making, let me see, $23.5 million next year, so he is above the $19 million threshold with the base year compensation rule and all that. That's
put Torrey Craig in there.
Easily worked around by the fact that it would be Ayton plus a piece, Shamet or Craig or something. You'd figure it out.
Yeah.
Just in terms of who John Collins is, the player, I don't know, man. It's better than Clint Capella, but I still think this is kind of a lose-lose for both teams. I guess I don't see certainly Ayton is a huge defensive upgrade over John Collins for the Hawks.
Yeah. They could play him and Capella side by side. Ayton could finally be a power forward.
That's not what they should do.
They would trade Capella. Yeah.
They would trade Capella for what? I don't know. I'll be honest. I mean, you could play Ayton and Okongwu side by side, and I don't hate that.
DeAndre Hunter.
Okongwu's kind of interesting,
well.
actually.
Yeah.
John Collins is clearly a guy who had a lot of positive. He's good, but he's
a good player.
Yeah, he is. But hear me out. He had a lot of positive momentum a couple of years ago, And at a certain point, if you're the 6'10" wiry power forward who's not really a center but probably should be and doesn't really play as much defense as you should, it inevitably comes an issue when you're trying to play for actually great teams. And that's the stage of John Collins' career where we're at. Is John Collins doomed in the modern NBA to play for mediocre teams, or can he adapt his game to be a successful starting center, which he would probably have to be somewhere? So I don't know. It's difficult with him, man. He only played. I actually didn't even realize this until I looked it up today. He only played 24 minutes per game in that Heat series this year. That's concerning. It's stuff like that which is concerning.
Yeah, it's not the worst case scenario. I'll say that. I think there's like this general belief about John Collins that the Hawks just did not utilize him as well as they could have. And I do think that there's an interesting scenario where John Collins is the starting power forward, and then maybe the Suns run a 5-out small ball unit with John Collins at the 5 and really go all in on offense during those minutes and see how good they can do in that scenario. And then John Collins is the screener. He is popping. He's catching it in the middle of the floor, attacking, passing out of that, stuff like that. And maybe the Suns are able to capitalize on that and really try to find ways to utilize him really well. He's a pretty good three-point shooter. Like throughout his career, he's never been bad.
Yeah,
which is kind of interesting. I think the biggest concern would be defense, and I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening there. But I'd say keep an eye on John Collins as a potential option for the Suns if both teams are willing to move on from guys. Worst case scenario, John Collins is still a tradable contract, I would think, especially if you could revive his career a little bit. But look, I
guess
don't know.
I'm just like. But also, just for a second, from Atlanta's perspective, let's say you clear Clint Capella for cap space or something, and then you do an Ayton for Collins sign and trade or whatever, and you get a lottery pick for Capella. I'm not exactly sure how this would work. I'm just kind of improvising here, but it's like, what does that do for the Hawks? I'm just not sure I get it. Is Ayton going to be like? Don't they need more playmaking surrounding Trey?
He's a much better defender.
I know he is, but what does he really do for that team as their second best player?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of fascinating, actually. I would like to see it, like in like a 2K version of it at least, just to see how it would work with Trae Young getting. Ayton's a good screen. He's gotten a lot better at screening, right? He's learned a lot from Chris Paul, and that would be something that he would benefit. Yeah, I don't think they're a team that would give him what he supposedly has asked for, which is just allowing him to.
I could see how
that team revolves around Trey and will until they get another ball handler. I think Bogdan is the closest they have.
The inside-outside gravity between the two of them would be tremendous. I'll give them that. Like, no doubt, you would watch it on offense and it would work a lot of the time. But it's just like,
and he's like the best passer in the league too. So
yeah, it's
he's going to thread a lot of needles.
It's still not a perfect roster fit. I guess I would just say that. I would question.
He'll have to learn how to not throw bounce passes.
Yeah.
Which was something that would help. Let me just make a point here, though. Devin Booker is eligible for a Supermax extension. This offseason, he can sign it essentially all the way up to like the beginning of the season. He has a long time to do it. As much as we talked about people oddly turning against Chris Paul, I can tell you one thing that I know with 100% certainty. Devin Booker has not. And he knows that the clock is running on Chris Paul as well. If the Suns were to find a way to, quote-unquote, go all in on a championship, this is the year to do it. And Devin Booker has the leverage to force that. And I think this is a kind of interesting thing about this offseason. Because right now, Devin Booker can use his agent to go to James Jones and say, yeah, I'll sign an extension. You have to give me a championship-worthy team now. Otherwise, I'm going to go into my free agency after next year and figure things out there. Then you'll have an opportunity to prove that you're building a championship contender there. But he believes in Chris Paul. And he knows that with Chris Paul, this is the year. This is the last year, basically, that you're going to have to really go all in with Chris Paul. And that means dramatically upgrading at certain positions for this team. And I think this free agency, as important as we've talked about it, and this offseason in general, as important as we've talked it up to be, he's got a lot of leverage over the Suns right now. And I think he would be wrong to not utilize it. And I think it's going to be fascinating. You talk about John Collins as an option. Yeah, that's an option. Or even just bringing DeAndre Ayton back. If Devin Booker says that's not it, then they kind of can't do it. And it's just, I think, I could just keep coming back to this mentally because it's just a tough year, man. I know that he believes in Chris Paul, and I think that's going to have an effect on what we're looking at going forward. Anything else on John Collins?
No, not on John Collins. Should we move on to other teams?
I'm going to just throw out one team to watch, and that's the Orlando Magic.
Yep.
As a potential suitor for DeAndre Ayton. It's just something that I've heard about as a potential suitor for DeAndre Ayton that really hasn't been reported yet. They have the number 1 overall pick. They've been known to sign big men before, and they'd have to clear a little bit of cap space to do it, but I don't think it would be very hard for them to do if they needed to do that.
Can I just
Any
say,
thoughts on that?
well, okay, first of all, number 1 overall pick, I don't know who they're going to, I don't want to discuss the draft. No draft talk allowed. So actually, we're not going to,
It's like a big, tall, skinny guy.
Yeah, big. Ayton paired with big, tall, skinny guy at the 4 would be kind of cool. And
Ayton would be at the 4 in that scenario, actually. Sorry.
and with Cole Anthony, who, there's a core there. There's a core there that makes sense.
Yeah. They would lose a lot of games next year.
What's new? But here's my Magic take. Wendell Carter's really underrated, actually.
Yeah.
I guess if I could plant anything in people's ear now,
like if the Suns were capable of getting Wendell Carter Jr. back instead of Capella, that's good.
I'm not saying
in my opinion,
I'm not
right?
saying that's I'm not saying that that's good either. Like I'm not saying that that's exactly an Ayton replacement. But again, I guess I almost question why the Magic would be so insistent on replacing Carter with Ayton, because Carter is actually pretty good. He kind of spaces the floor. He averages a few assists per game. Like he kind of puts the ball on the floor. And he's also only 22 years old. And I think he's under team control until 2026, making barely $12 million a year. He's actually on a front-loaded contract, as I look at his page now, starting next season, to the point where by Wendell Carter's
it's a great contract.
Look at this. By Wendell Carter's age 26 season, just before he goes into his unrestricted free agency phase, he'll be making $11 million. For a guy who averaged 15, 10, and 3 this season on solid efficiency. He's a decent defender. Like he's not.
He can do a little dribbling. He can do a little shooting.
He can do a little bit of everything. I'm not trying to talk anyone into anything right now. I'm just saying, like from a general NBA perspective. Keep an eye out for Wendell Carter. He's actually pretty solid.
Who are the best free agents Orlando has ever had in your memory?
My memory?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think.
It's like Gary Harris and Biyombo. Like this is they kind of like DeAndre. I get why they'd be. This is the kind of free agent they can get. DeAndre Ayton. That would be like honestly that would probably be their best free agent signing in the last 20 years.
Did they assemble the Dwight finals team where Rashard Lewis or Hedo Turkoglu, were those free agent signings, or did they trade for those guys? I can't even remember anymore. But
what year was that? 06?
Like 08 and 09 was the team that went to the finals in 09, I think.
Yeah, that was probably
working off memory.
He was drafted there. I mean, Dwight was drafted there.
There, but I'm wondering if the surrounding piece. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
Tracy McGrady, according to the internet,
the
top 5 best. According to the internet, the top 5 best free agent signings in Orlando. Number 1, Tracy McGrady. That's the best, right? I mean, you
realize by the way that other than Steve Nash, Phoenix is not much better. So we shouldn't make too many jokes here. Okay. Our number 2 is like Grant Hill or something. So we only have so much room to talk.
Yeah, I mean the Suns have a lot of good trades.
Number 3, Tyson Chandler.
Yeah. Number 4, that time LaMarcus Aldridge almost signed in Phoenix. Number 1, Tracy McGrady. Number 2, Horace Grant, which is a great example of like a role player that was signed that got him to the finals. And then here's where it gets bad. Number 3, Hedo Turkoglu.
Okay.
Rashard Lewis. Number 4, Bo Outlaw. Number 5.
I mean,
these are all a long time ago, except for Turkoglu.
Turk and Rashard Lewis
Tracy
got them.
Rashard,
man, Rashard Lewis, 09 Rashard Lewis, put some respect.
Yeah.
Put some
Rashard Lewis would be
respect.
so good in today's NBA.
They also really
really good.
That team's kind of fascinating. I mean, I still have a lot of respect.
That was the prototypical
lot of respect
like modern NBA team. Yeah, that had the point forwards, the rim running 5 who wanted to post up, and they were they shot a lot of threes around him. Kind of a fascinating thing.
Cool team.
Yeah. So I guess I understand why Orlando may be interested, and we'll see if that ends up being the case. Let's see where we at on time here. Wow, we really spent a long time on Cameron Johnson. A couple things that I want to get through real quick here. Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report is saying that the Suns maybe are resistant to trade Dario Saric and want him to come back and be healthy. This is actually something I mentioned after I think it was like 1 or 2 episodes ago, maybe it was a Patreon one, so sorry if you didn't hear it. But I just had the feeling that this was coming, that I think the Suns maybe want to keep Dario and want to keep him as that backup 5 because it's kind of better than any of the options if he gets back to like just about what he was. You know, he had multiple injuries, and even to some extent, if they could revive his value a little bit before the trade deadline and then trade him at that point, it's not the worst case scenario. What do you think about this report?
Yeah, I mean, I think based on everything I know about Monty Williams and his system, like the loss of Dario Saric this past season probably profoundly affected him in how he wanted to run the Suns offense. Like I really believe that type of player is a special type of player. I'm trying not to overdo it now, but is like a valuable player to Monty Williams in their system, and being able to soak up space in the middle of the floor and, you know, hit a few threes and make plays for others. Dario's inside gravity is going to continue to be a problem, man. The pump fake's only going to get him so far. And so do I really believe he can have like substantially above replacement value, above replacement player value next year? I'm not sure. Right. I think he can be solid. Does he live up to a $10 million contract? Maybe he does that. But I'm not like you could revive him. I would be pretty shocked if Dario Saric was like one of the Suns' 8 best players next season, though. I guess I'll just say that. I see him kind of more of like a case by case basis. We'll play you in some games when it makes sense, but not all the time.
You think people have forgotten how good he was?
I mean, here's the thing. To some
extent, he was like a top 5 player for the Suns.
He was so good the first half of the final season, and then he was so bad. That's the other thing, too. He really was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the Suns really don't have anyone who can do the things that he can do. So I just understand why they want to keep him. And if he can get back up to being like relatively healthy, then it's still a pretty good contract for the value that he could potentially bring off the bench, which essentially at one time there was like 6 Man of the Year buzz that we probably contributed to when it comes to Dario Saric.
We absolutely contributed to that. We absolutely
we got Kevin O'Connor to tweet about it. All right, a couple things from our Discord real quick that I want to answer, since we have I know it's going a little long, but we have 2 questions, so we might as well answer them. And for those who don't know, we started a Discord for our Patreon. If you're interested in signing up for our Patreon, you could do it at patreon.com/thetimeline, and you could ask us questions like this that we'll maybe bring up on a podcast in the future. Bryce said with McGee. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, we now have over 200 people in the Discord. I think I've said it before, they're all incredibly attractive. So if you would like to be attractive too, please go sign up for the Discord. Anyway, said my spiel. Go ahead.
Bryce _17 said, with McGee, Biyombo, and Ayton all being free agents this summer, are you at all worried that none of the 3 will be back? I think this actually might. Biyombo is the most likely at this point.
I'm sticking to my guns that Bismack Biyombo. I forget what I said exactly. I said Bismack Biyombo, other than Chris Paul and Devin Booker, is the most likely Sun to return or something like that. And I am sticking to my guns. He is going to be in the Suns
because it's a minimum
uniform.
Deal. And he could play with Chris Paul.
He is a surefire minimum deal. Who I think everyone in the locker room adores Bismack Biyombo, and there's no reason they would want to see him leave. Right. I think that's obvious. JaVale, it becomes more difficult because it's like if JaVale wanted a minimum deal, I'm sure they'd bring him back too. If JaVale wants $5 million again, then they probably don't want to do it. I'm not sure. We'll see. But yeah.
If Ayton's gone and they trade Ayton for a wing, maybe McGee comes back and plays the 14-minute a game starter role that he's done on contenders in the past.
Right.
But yeah, I think Biyombo might be the most likely at this point. And I mean, I'm including Ayton in that. Mr. Franchise said, I keep seeing the Suns working out players from the draft, even projected in the second-round picks. He wants to know if we have a foreseeable route back into the draft, and if we do, who's trading their second-round pick for Elfrid Payton. Yeah, the Suns could probably get into the draft if they were willing to trade a player. Like, you could probably get a pick for, like, Torrey Craig in the second round.
Well,
or Landry Shamet, maybe even in the first round, depending on the team. If it's like a late, I mean, that's
who
what
was it?
Denver. For in the past.
Was it Denver today that just traded JaMychal Green for
JaMychal Green?
What pick?
A future protected first round pick that they're likely not going to get, I think, and then 2 second round picks. So basically 2 second round picks.
Well, they got a tangible. Okay, I'll admit I have not seen this detailed report. I thought they got a tangible.
I don't know but it was projected.
I thought they got a numbered pick this year. Like I thought they traded JaMychal Green and they got it.
Oh, maybe they did.
This year.
Okay. No, I think you're right.
Let me
I
look,
think you're
let me
right.
look. Let me fact check myself.
Maybe
in
the
real time.
protected pick was going back the other way.
I
should
do-
know this
I
as
do
the
think
guy
that's-
who's named protected pick on the internet.
I do think that's what it was. Okay. Woj just tweeted a decent amount today. What the hell? Okay, yeah. JaMychal Green.
It's the last day that players can cancel their declaring for the draft. So yeah.
So JaMychal Green to the Thunder for the 30th pick, and yeah, there was other
There
stuff
you go.
going each way, but that was the basic.
Yeah. So that's
logic
an
behind
example.
it.
That's a first round pick.
So if
And that's
JaMychal
not
Green-
a great player,
Yeah, if JaMychal Green can go for the 30th overall pick, you could probably trade Landry Shamet for a second round pick somewhere.
Yeah.
Or
and OKC has 25 picks. So.
or like Torrey Craig for a second round pick, that might make sense too. He's on a deal next year. So
expiring as well, yeah.
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Sorry, we don't know anything about those players. We do want to do a live show for the draft, just with us reacting, maybe having some experts on. Hopefully you guys are interested in that. We'll post a link. I think that one will just be open to everyone, not just Patreon, so everyone could join in on that one. And we'll have a party for the draft of us. You could make fun of us, basically, not knowing who any of the players are. And it could be kind of fun, I think. But that's all we got this week. We appreciate you guys for listening. Thank you to the patrons who gave us questions and everyone who signed up for the Patreon. Discord has been very fun. We'll be back, hopefully, with a Patreon episode this week. I am feeling slightly under the weather, so hopefully I feel a little bit better by the time we have to record that one. But we appreciate you guys, and we will be back soon.